Well, you're gonna have to say it again because what is it? I think the brand that they use is gosh, what was it from Harry Potter? It was the like birdies every flavor bean or something.
Yeah, every flavored bean, something like that.
Every flavored bean. That's the
Yeah.
21st century in a nutshell. Every flavored bean. Everyone
Sometimes, yeah.
everyone wants to be their own unique flavor.
So now you want to blame it on Harry Potter.
Oh, we should blame Harry Potter and what's her name? The chick that wrote Harry Potter. She's been painted. She's been cast into a corner now. She can't even go out and speak in the real world before people are going to throw eggs at her, calling her a transphobe and this and that. But
Emma Watterson.
no, Emma Watson's the actor. I don't think she's well. She might be a transphobe. I don't think she is. The
Hermione.
Hermione. The
Yeah.
what's her name? The freaking chick that wrote it. I gosh, I
The
never even
author?
read the series. Yeah, the author.
She's called what? I don't remember.
I don't know. I'd have to chuck it in the Google.
Eh,
I got an image in my head of what she looks like, but I can't even remember the name now. But everyone wants to be their own flavor in the 21st century, and it's and then those individuals want to start their own friggin' movements, and it's
So
just
it's basically like if you're a sane person, you are sandwiched between ISIS and LGBT.
sometimes there's a bleeding, sometimes there's a
Huh?
bleeding of the two, which is
Oh
like,
yeah, the queers for Islam people. Oh,
oh, that's the best. That's the best,
that,
mate. When I bring that up to some people, they go, "What?" And I'm like, "Mate, there's like over 100 organizations globally, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, America, Germany, France. The list goes on. There's at least 5 to 10 in each country." And I think to myself, like, this is really ironic. I hope people know that, right? Like,
yeah,
I hope people know that.
there's something happened in US, right, where these guys, the LGBT community, they supported Muslim migrants,
Yep.
and when these guys came to power, I think this was in the news a couple of days back. And now that these guys are in electoral power, there was some compulsion to put an LGBT, that colorful flag, on taxis, and they were against it, and they removed it. And the LGBT people are feeling betrayed in a certain way, but
It's just
every
they
flavored
even they
bean.
even hijack they even hijack the electromagnetic spectrum of colors. Like, let's just put a sexual proclivity on every single color that comprises up a rainbow, which is literally just like an electromagnetic spectrum of light. And I just think to myself, like, mate, everyone wants to have their own goddamn flavor. Everyone wants a little bit. I want to be a little bit between purple and red. I want to be a little bit of blue. I want to be a little bit of orange, a little bit of green. Like, I get it. I'm all for individual liberty. I'm all for like people being their own versions of themselves. But for heaven's sake, don't tell me you want to be a cat. Don't tell me you want to be a horse. Don't tell me you want to be X, Y, and Z. Because like, mate, sometimes people just have to live in reality. Like, I don't think it's necessary to live this like illustrious life where people just like pretend to be X, Y, and Z because like today they feel like this, tomorrow they feel like that. Like, I get it, man. Like, I get the idea of feeling like something for the day, and that doesn't mean I want to feel like I'm an animal or some sort of quasi like gender that like is fluid and like flows like water between a man and a woman, whatever that is. But like, why can't we just get back to like the basic nature of what makes people people? Like, we are
It's
spiritual
it,
creatures, electrical creatures.
it's hard, right? It's hard to be simple, right?
It is hard to be simple
And
now. Everyone wants to be simple.
it's also hard to um it's hard to deal with the world. And I think at one level, also feel sad about this entire, the people who get sort of rolled up in this narrative game, because it makes you such a dysfunctional human being at the end of the day. It makes you a really, really dysfunctional human being. And you basically are not able to operate in the, because see, most of the life that we have, interacting with people, people who we love, the people who we hate, our relatives, our friends, um, for most part, it is non-political,
Mm.
right?
For
If
the
you want to
most
be a
part.
functional, it's if you want to be a functional member of the society, you better be able to switch off your political side most of the time. And this third, fourth wave of liberal narrative, and I don't know what fifth or seventh grade feminism. I don't know what where it is right now, because it's so fluid. Yeah, that you can't lay a standard on it. That you have to wear it on your sleeve all the time. And how do you really cope with that? See, earlier people used to identify as somebody's mother, somebody's wife, somebody's brother, somebody's sister.
Mm.
Now it's basically, at least from the Indian perspective, there was a great debate where these people used to come out and say that women have no identity, that their entire identity is because they're a mother, they're the mother of someone, or the wife of someone, or the daughter of someone, and so you took it away, and now what do you have? You have your own personality, which is so incomplete, because it is the those people who are around you who used to make you feel complete. And it's not also about women, it's also about men. There's a lot of this individualism that we have. It has lots of issues, and I'm not saying that individualism should not be there, because without the ability to exist in the world as an individual, you're not going to enjoy your life, and that's pretty much a fact. But then, where is the balance? And where is the where is the aspect of culture that you try to retain the best things and try to avoid the worst things? That kind of mental exercise is just not happening. That kind of thought process is just not happening. Everybody wants to be me, myself, and my identity, and my color, and my race, and what I wear, and what I identify as. Folks.
There, look, you said it perfectly. There is a lot of mental gymnastics going on, and I just think to myself, like, where does it end? Like, as you said, I agree with you. I'm all for individual liberty. I think everyone has the right to be themselves and exist in the world and have their own individual thoughts and their own individual feelings. What I think becomes a problem is when your individual thoughts and individual feelings begin to propagate themselves into the social fabric where like morality and ethics begin to sort of like decay and degrade away. Because like whether people want to accept it or not, and well, I think people that accept it understand it. I think people that don't accept it don't understand it. And those people, in my personal opinion, are atheists. Tend to be this idea that like morals and ethics are like gifts from the divine. Whether people want to call that as God, whether people want to call that as a pantheon of deities, whatever that could be, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Sanatani Dharma, Zoroastrianism, insert whatever. But like all societies have flourished off of a stringent set of morals and ethics. Now, obviously,
And
there's an argument
discipline.
to be made where, and discipline as well,
And
correct, and
discipline.
obvious and discipline, and I think there's certainly an argument to be made where like certain aspects of different cultures have a different an indifference in moralities and ethics. Probably not so much morality as opposed to ethics. I think ethics definitely probably plays more of a 50-50 between like sort of the spiritual and the physical, but like morals seems to be something that's like inherently built into us to such a degree, and maybe it's played like sort of a part and parcel from like the propagation and development of spirituality over like, thousands and thousands of years. But we're certainly at a stage where humans should be able to automatically identify what is immoral as opposed to moral. And I think when you start to peddle narratives that impact children's malleable minds,
Mm.
that's when morals have like crossed the line in my personal, and ethics. I think that's had like those two things have completely crossed the line. I think get back to basics. And this is, look, I don't know to the extent of how prevalent these sort of like Western concepts or modern like what's the term that is used? Like it's like or I'm just gonna sort of just say it and it might come to me. But these sort of ideas of like 21st century like modern social like perspectives, modern social like fabric and the adjustment of society and how things should be in this sort of like nuanced world where we've got like this heavy inclination of like left wing politics and right wing politics where one side's like all where I think both sides equally about individual liberty, but one side placates heavy to the stabilization of morals and ethics, where the other one placates to the idea of the separation of morals and ethics, because one seems to be more about like spiritual, divine, or divinity, God, and one's like, well, everything is just like chaotic and random, so like let's feed into that. And it seems to become very, at least to me, it's seemingly becoming very, very prevalent in the Western world. And I guess my question to you, bro, is like, is that sort of Western, sort of that sort of like 21st century Western like liberal mindset beginning to like propagate itself in any way, shape, or form in like the subcontinent of India? And
So, um, yeah, sorry, I was getting a call.
that's right.
Picking it up. Yeah. So here's the thing. A, a part of the a part of Indian people, you won't believe, is more American than Indian or Bharatiya, right? So amongst those, they will understand, they will understand New York more than what they will understand Delhi or Gujarat or place like that. Because in the aspirational group amongst Indians wants to be American, wants to be European. So amongst those, and especially a subcategory which is not really rooted to their culture, yeah, this thing is spreading like wildfire. Fortunately, they are a minority. Unfortunately, they are a very powerful minority.
Mm,
They have access and authority in institutions.
gosh.
So they are trying to push the narrative that they're trying to get into technical institutions and set their basis there in terms of study center. These sub schools within schools, liberal schools, and things like that. They also try to get into through social sciences, which I believe if you put social and science together, it doesn't gel in. It doesn't gel in together for at least for me. Overall, we are untouched by at least this garbage. There are other things that are wrong in India, but largely speaking, people want to get married, people want to have a life, and they want to uh, earn a living. They're rooted to their culture or subculture. So and one of the upcoming problems is that we have opened our education for joint ventures with foreign universities. And though at this point of time we are just allowing, I think the focus is on STEM, but you really don't know because one of the thing with liberal art, this liberal and social education is that because these people are dysfunctional, they only produce academicians, and
Mm,
they're of no use to the industry, and everybody wants to get an academic job. and they target the academic institutions very, very aggressively. So if they get too many numbers within universities, and the political disposition changes to a more liberal one, then they might get into spaces where they shouldn't be, like schools and undergrad colleges and things like that. So yeah, that's my perspective. But largely, even even the left-leaning Indians, they get married in a ritualistic ceremony. They want to have kids. They will there are communists in India who get married in a temple. So
Fuck. So there's definitely some irony. There's definitely some irony there.
yes, yes,
It's oh
yes.
gosh, man. It's just like
So for example, sorry to interrupt.
sorry.
There's a guy called Udaynidhi Stalin. He is the son of one of the chief ministers, like the provincial heads of India. He's the son of the chief minister of Tamil Nadu, and he said that we need to destroy Sanatan Dharma. And yeah, he said that. And then there were like similar statements made by people from his party. This guy's mother is a devotee of Durga.
Oh my gosh. It's man, that how can someone live
He he
this
has a
like
he has a temple in his house, and
oh
that's
my
on air.
god. How can someone live like such a warped sense of reality? What do you do? Like you just like pick and choose like this just harkens back to this idea of like what do people do? Just like pick and choose like oh today I'm gonna be a communist, tomorrow I'm gonna be like a conservative that like upholds like spiritual values of Sanatana Dharma, but then like the day after I'm gonna go back to a communist where I just go like we need to destroy Sanatana Dharma. Look, is it I wonder. I think to myself, like one of the things that I've talked about on like Twitter Spaces with different communities, with the Australian community, the American community, and with the Hindu community, is this idea of like bad faith actors, like people that are like literally, whether they're paid or not, is entirely separate discussion. But like people that have this sort of like strange idea of how the world works. Like they just play this game like if they say something that goes against a particular narrative, they get called out on it, except for Sundays. Sundays, like they go back to their roots. But every other day, like every other day, let's be like silly and just like play our own game where we just like detract ourselves from the social fabric. Let's detract ourselves from morals and ethics. But on Sundays we're gonna go and pray. On Sundays we're gonna do puja. And obviously I'm using Sunday like obviously not literally, just in this sort of like metaphorical. But my point holds is like just it's just a lot of bad faith actors that I see around these days. And when I think of bad faith actors, man, I just think to myself like, what kind of dog have you got in the fight? Like you must have a dog in the fight, yeah. You have to. Like there can't be genuine human beings like this that aren't like taking some like notes slipped under the table that are like lining their pockets. Like I can't imagine that humans can be that brain dead that they genuinely think that whatever the game that they play, they're getting away with where other people don't notice. And it's just
Uh,
I don't know. It just baffles me, man.
Perhaps because one of the most important skill in life is the ability to see things as they are. Most humans, they judge others from the perspective of their morality, as in they attribute that the other person who they are assessing also has the same architecture of morality as themselves. And then only then you find it difficult to say that, okay, some guy can lie like that. I can't believe it. But that is half of your. I mean, this understanding is extremely important, that you stop seeing people from your own virtues, because people are what they are. Right. For example, in this case, this guy is has politics handed over to him in inheritance. He likes to cling to power, and that's his basic instinct. Your basic instinct is to be a truthful person. Somebody's basic instinct would be to stick to power. Somebody's basic instinct would be to do something else. And one should I just hope that people don't make that mistake. And it's a problem with a lot of good people, by the way. The the people who are good at heart, they're not able to, and it's a problem, they're not able to exercise discretion. They're not able to discriminate. Discrimination is not
Mm.
discriminating between what is good for you and what is bad for you, and what's truthful and what is what is falsehood. That kind of discrimination is extremely important, and it takes a while. It takes practice. This really can't be written down in steps. It takes a while. It takes a lot of experience to reach this state of mind.
It just makes me think there's a there's a quote that I heard I heard once, and like this just in terms of like where this sort of like conversation's going. Um, it goes the quote goes, when we are in power, we ought to fear ourselves. And I can't remember who specifically said it. I'm sure if I chucked it in Google, it would pop up. And I heard it on another podcast. I heard it on a podcast. Um, I don't know, like that specific quote has sort of like resonated with me in like some way, shape, or form.
Mm,
And I think to myself, like, especially in like the 21st century, how like when people like, as you're describing how people cling to power and this and that, I think like, do you think by holding on to power, you are going to run away or at least hide from like from fear, from loss of power, etc., etc.? Like when you get that power in any way, shape, or form, let's say that's from a business owner all the way up to like a politician that is like running a country or participating in swearing in bills and policies and this and that, and it's the people that are within your sort of circuit in this case, like whether that is a corporate a corporation that has like a board of directors, or a government that has like at least in sort of like in the Commonwealth, or like the UK or common law, we've got lower house, upper house, and then sort of representatives. I think to myself, do you genuinely think, and this goes back to a conversation we're having just previously, do you genuinely think that like you playing in this game of like power and
you're gonna get away
tyranny
with
and
it.
huh?
You're gonna get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do you genuinely think you're going to get away with it in all its forms? Like, do you genuinely think that citizens, that human beings, that genuine level-headed human beings, which I personally believe most human beings are, do you genuinely think you're going to get away with it? Because it just seems to me, especially in the age now where we have the internet, where you have such a quick transfer of information, do you think that anything you say or anything you do or any policies that you partake in where you say yes, 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 and yes, do you think that the citizens aren't going to notice this and like rise up or begin to rise up in some way, shape, or form? Look what happened in Sri Lanka, bro. All those terrible policies, terrible immigration policies, terrible financial policies, terrible banking policies that were instilled. Mate, the Sri Lankan Parliament House was overrun with citizens and held by the citizens for like almost 7 months. The politicians weren't even allowed in the friggin' house. And I think, what the hell? Like, how does other nations look at that? Look at what happened in Brazil. Dude, you had like
Mm,
1 million people just descend on the whatever the Brazilian version of the Parliament House is, or whatever their version is, the presidential House of Representatives, or whatever it is that they've got there. And then look at the US, that January 6th thing. Bro, you had like almost 2 million people descend on Washington, D.C. because you had that many people that genuinely believed that the political circuit had become so corrupt that their votes were just like thrown into the dumpster bin and just set on fire. Like,
You know,
people
mm,
don't just conjure these things up overnight. They see enough
mm,
that they come to these conclusions.
how I feel about it is that when you're in power, you don't introspect because you're in power. For most part, people introspect when they're not in power. I mean, introspection should be there. That's supposed to be the role of religion and spirituality in administration. But perhaps it's also true for us, right? Because we didn't have the best of lives. We had to come up, make our way into the world, and you're still struggling. I too am struggling, trying to find a stable source of bread and butter, and that's why we're contemplating, right? For those who don't have these issues, um, and who have not been exposed to moral dilemmas, what the friction of decision making, and who have never been exposed to uh, the the say the bad karmas, for example, for the lack of better word, of their actions for a very long time. Will they introspect? Because if you're in power, monetary or political, what ends up happening is that you keep on doing things, and there are no consequences for you, and the sense of impunity keeps increasing till the balloon just bursts. Till the balloon bursts, it's a very different situation. It's a very different situation. You don't realize how many lives you're destroying, because all you want to do is cling on to power, right? So the proverbial wisdom that you just said, right? Now, when you're in power, you should be afraid of yourself. That's very true. You should introspect, and that's hard because actual power means that you can also actual power really means that you can get away with the consequences of your actions, at least in the in the physical world, the karmic consequences and what will happen in the afterlife, etc., 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 and how nature will take its revenge. That's a discussion for another time. But in that particular situation, you just keep getting away. That's power. That's the flip side, of the very definition of power.
I know you just said a conversation for another day, but I definitely want to dive into it just a little bit. Like maybe just like get our feet wet as opposed to like, diving head first into it. Um,
Go ahead.
this idea of like sort of not being able to have any sort of like introspectiveness and look upon oneself and see like what someone's decision making is having in terms of an impact on like a greater world, whether that be like, whether that be their family or society, you know, or even a business or, a corporation, whatnot. Do you think that, do you think that, and maybe I'm just sort of like handballing it in some way, but I feel like, and this is something that I've obviously come to terms with recently with like sort of the idea of like generational karma. Do you think that do you think that
Mhm.
some people are like do you think some people are like very, very ignorant to the idea of karma, and because they're those people that are very ignorant to it hold themselves in such high esteem with like basically being born with like in Australia, and I think in some parts of the West they would use the term like born with a silver spoon up their ass because they're
Mm.
like born into wealth, so they don't have this sort of like conceptual idea of like consequence. because money has always been there as a sort of like a buffer for consequence. Do you
Mm,
think that do you think that comes to a point where, like, how do I describe it? Like one of like the biggest arguments that I've seen from like atheists, and it's a fair argument. Like, to be completely honest, it is like a fair argument. It's like one of the arguments I'll see from, or I've heard and been in conversations with atheists, is like, well, like if spiritualism exists, if God exists, how come like all these bad things happen? How come like politicians come into power or particular individuals come into power and they let all these bad things happen and become rampant for generations to come? And I think to myself, you know what? Like, you're right. But I also know that, like, at least from a Western mindset, and from like, at least from sort of like this Christian Western sort of like, I guess, like philosophical slash theological sort of like framework that has been built into like the fabric of Western society, is that like God doesn't intervene with human will. Like, he just doesn't seem to, in some way, shape, or form. Where in like Sanatani Dharma, there seems to be this indifference of will, where it begins to impact not the individual, but the generations to come. And I feel like if people are able to grasp this concept and this idea that, like, you know, you might be born with a silver spoon, but if you're going to use that silver spoon to scoop everyone's eyes out over your entire lifetime, you bet your fucking ass in the next life you're going to be born blind. And that's just my personal view, of course. Like, I've
mm,
got no validity to this, but I feel that a lot of individuals, and especially when we talk about like hierarchical structure and politicians and people in power and people born into wealth that just happen to be part of a family that's in power, they don't seem to get it. They don't seem to have a greater concept or a greater understanding of the implications of their actions that impact societies, that impact their, the people around them, etc. And because they've got all this money, they're able to buffer all those things. They're able to buffer court cases. They're able to buffer if they get a letter in the mail, like, oh, you've got to appear at court here, there, and everywhere. They're able to buffer, like, thousands, if not tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people, maybe even millions of people in many cases. Like, if we look obviously across, like, the region of Asia and Western Asia and this and that, like, obviously India's like 1.4 billion. I don't know how many people like Rahul Gandhi, but it seems like a lot of people don't like him. You know what I mean?
probably.
Like, there's some reasons why they don't like him, and those reasons are very fair and very valid, but he doesn't seem to be and I don't want to obviously go like into the depths of, Indian politics, but he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that identifies his own policies as having negative implications on the rest of society. And he thinks, oh, this is all just fucking amazing. Let's just go for it. And I'm just like, bro, mate, there's a reason you're not in power, yeah. Like, there's a reason. You can't keep feeding money from your own family lineage into these like media organizations, whether that be the BBC or others, that like try and paint you in this holistic good light, because everyone knows it's all bullshit, bro. Everyone knows it's all bullshit. Anyway, I'm ranting now.
So, yeah, no, that's all right. Um, so this thing of intergenerational karma, right? You can see it in a very simple way in the physical space itself. If, for example, your parents were not financially savvy, there's a hard chance that you will be a financial expert,
Mm.
right? Uh,
Oh, jeez. Just thinking about like working in the finance industry for like 4 years, like just so I can learn like the ins and outs of it. But my mum and my dad, forget about it.
I mean, you must have tried really hard, right? And if you've not seen financial prudence happening inside your house, then it's a miracle that you yourself will be a financially prudent person. Uh, if you've been smoking weed while you're pregnant, your offsprings will have a very high affinity for cannabinoids. Same for alcohol.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
uh, and for and this is plain genetics and epigenetics. Um, as far as gouging somebody's eyes with the silver spoon that you have is concerned, perhaps in the next birth you will have eyes,
Mm,
but you will see the pain of uh, your beloved people getting their eyes gouged out, but you can see the punishment that nature metes out is never in the same currency in which it was earned. Almost never. It's a
yeah.
currency that you don't choose. I'll tell you a story, right? It's a so there's a family in back in my village regarding some land dispute. They murdered a child, right? They murdered a child, broke open his head, and legally nothing was done because they were in power. And this is, when I was a kid. Um, they 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 only had one functional boy in their house. Rest all were, here and there. And that that guy died. Um, his head was crushed by a truck.
Fuck.
And what do you what do you have to say about this? You know that the kid we know that they killed a child.
That generational line's basically been like cut off. Like that's almost like a that's almost like the epitome of karma. Like you stopped the ability for a family line to continue and propagate, and karma literally came around and did exactly the same thing to your own line. Like
Hmm.
that is, oh man, it happens, man. But like, I think to myself, and I'm not an atheist by any stretch of the imagination. By any stretch of the imagination. I think atheists are just like lost souls as far as I'm concerned.
So
But
there's
like,
one thing before you go on. There's one thing
yeah,
that I
go for
have
it.
to say. There is only so much of the world that we understand with our five senses.
Mm,
If we go beyond our five senses and we can go beyond the sense of the immediate time that we have, and there are, I believe, well, I know of people who are capable of doing that, right? Um, I think the world looks very different, right? And that's why those people they become some most of them become very careful about who they talk to, what they do, about the karmas, because when you can see the action and the reaction of every step that you take, life changes. But for most part, people only identify with the five senses, identify the world that they can perceive with their five senses. The effect of the effect, it is well known amongst human civilization that you reap what you sow, right? It's well known. There is no culture on this earth that would not have something, a golden rule similar to that. But knowledge is not realization. Knowledge is knowledge. Knowledge is not realization. It is only when you're able to, basically that's the process of spiritual development, that you're able to grow your perception wider than the ambit of your five senses. That's spiritual process. The outcome, the physical outcome could be a kundalini activation or things like that. But kundalini which gets activated without you getting into a mental composure to be able to see the world um, as it is, that has consequences. For most part, you're going to go crazy. Even simple observations, this. how to put it? It's a hard thought that this suspension of your own virtues and your own morality while observing the world, even that is very painful, right? Because you almost see the world as a child, that there is goodness in me, and everybody has the same goodness, and that life is easy. But as soon as you realize, you suspend that belief that everybody comes with their own set of ideas and likes and dislikes and objectives, the world becomes real, but it becomes hard to play in that world. It becomes very hard to exist in that world and be stable, because you will be afraid of almost everyone and everything. And that, to deal with that, you need a you need to become more, for the lack of better word, spiritually conscious.
Yeah,
You need to become a
absolutely.
much more mature and better person, to be simply put, because these spiritually conscious and all these things, these are buzzwords at the end of the day.
Mm.
The most important things you can't even describe. You don't even have words for that. But this maturity as a human being, if that is not consciousness, what it is, what is it really, right? And that's the issue with most people, I guess.
Gosh. Yeah, I mean, look, I'd like to think that I'd like to think that if we were to look at this like sort of macro scale, I'd like to think that most people on the planet, irrespective of color or creed, are spiritually inclined. I don't think society in general across the planet has been able to like form and sort of take form and function itself without spirituality, without some form. Like I'm going to say religion, like as a sort of like blanket statement, because I feel like the term religion is the easiest idea for a lot of people to sort of like draw their minds to.
Go ahead.
I mean, for me, obviously, like I have my own thoughts and feelings on like religion versus spiritualism. Like for me, religion is like sort of the ritual versus the spiritual, and I could definitely go into the ideas of like why I think sort of like the ritual has, at least in sort of like the Western context, has moved too far away from the spiritual. But I feel that most people I would think are spiritually inclined. However, for the ones that aren't, like, bro, I don't know what world you're living in. I don't know what rock you're living under, mate, but like, there's just a whole other beautiful world out there that you just want to blatantly ignore. And that blatant ignorance, it doesn't lead anywhere good, my friend.
No,
It
it
just
it
leads to
it does
disarray.
it doesn't, but ignorance is very comforting,
It is very comforting. I 100% agree.
right?
Because it's just like, I don't need to think about it. I don't need to think about it. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to I don't need to partake in it. If I just ignore it, it's not there. But like, bro, have you looked up at the fucking night sky? Have you ever dreamt? Have you ever like wept over the death of a loved one? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, pardon my French, but like, seriously, man, when I hear people go, I'm an atheist, and not even agnostic, I'm talking like staunch atheist, I think, mate, there is some wires missing, there is some cogs that were taken out maybe when you were a kid. I don't know what's going on, but like, there
Yeah.
cannot be a world you exist in.
You remember the space where I think this strange discussion was going on, and I said, "Have you come across this situation where you were humming a song in your mind, and somebody that you know, like the best friend or your
Yeah.
sister or your wife, and all all
Yes.
the entire panel, it just freaked out." It just freaked out. It's such a simple thing. Everyone has come across that experience, but just to accept that on a public platform, it becomes, as in, like having an experience below, beyond your five senses, beyond the senses that your book of biology explains to you. It's sort of down market. It's
Oh, it is. It is.
It's extremely down market. Like having, and this happens with a lot of Hindus, especially. We are the last ones of our kind that thinking that a deity is real and it exists. That's a down market belief. No, we believe in, it's a mental concept. It's just something in the brain. It's trying to explain a tattva, a force of the nature. Like, fuck off.
You know, I was in a I was in a
The
space
the the,
recently
the
where there was
fucking
these
day you're gonna
atheists.
have say the fucking day you're gonna have an experience of a ghost, we'll talk about deities then.
Yeah. You know, one of the funny things is like I get from atheists, and I actually had it the other night in an Australian like political space, is like this such a broad such a broad term that doesn't represent anything of substance. Like this guy's like referring to people that are religious or spiritually inclined as like worshipping the sky people. And I'm like, what do you mean by the sky people? He's like, oh, there's like a place up in the clouds where everyone goes when they die and they got wings and halos and they just fly around and finger each other.
Burj
And I
Khalifa,
go, mate, yeah, exactly.
the people who live on the top floor of Burj Khalifa.
Oh man, they just got these people got. Look, I know I say these people like I love everyone, even if you've just got some like outlandish ideas about how the way the world works. But like, mate, I am baffled. I'm so baffled that how someone can genuinely consider that there is not like you know I think the easiest term people would use is like a sixth sense. Now, that doesn't mean like I'm seeing fucking ghosts, but like a sixth sense is in like this sense of like spiritual inclination, like you feel something when like like I've talked about it with you before, like this like something happens, some sort of like what I describe as like a synchronistic event will take place. It might be like, it might seem like a coincidence the first time, but then it might happen a couple more times. And each time it happens, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. It'll happen at a time when it's almost like like it'll happen at a time when these strange events occur in your life, whether like you're going through like some sort of like a negative emotional swing in your life. Maybe like family members have passed away. Maybe you've like run into like some sort of financial strain, business has gone under, etc., etc. And like atheists just want to chalk it up to it's just all fucking chaotic and random.
See, I'm going to say something really offensive,
Oh,
but
please, I love
yeah,
it.
yeah, that's my USP. Um, uh, I love dogs. I used to love my dog. My dog is fucking stupid.
Yeah, they are.
So as if you're an atheist and all, see, till the point you're trying to be a seeker, all fine. You haven't had the experience. I won't blame you for your ignorance, because I'll say that, okay, there are things that are hard to explain. At least this person is genuine. He is at least trying to make, there is a sincere attempt to make sense of the world. But if you say, all the time, and there's nothing that exists, and this universe just, something, something in the center of the universe farted once, and the whole thing came out of that, um, or by women are made from the rib of someone, and
Yeah.
some deity gave blessing and the entire race was formed, and all that kind of stupid, and this exists everywhere, right? So there are atheists who are, um, they have a set of assumptions for how the world exists as it is, and then there are religious people with equally dogmatic beliefs, and you're back.
I don't know what happened. I apologize, brother. It just the whole app just closed for some reason. Um,
Spirits.
it's the spirits. It's the spirits. I don't know.
Wh-
Let's
wh-
see. I can't
Till
I can't chalk that up to atheism. That's not just random and chaotic. Something just like randomly happened then. Um
till what point was I audible?
so you'd mentioned the ribs, using like sort of the ribs and
Yeah,
this like
so things
random
coming up,
idea.
we are woman coming out of somebody's ribs, and somebody, the entire clan being born out of the sun, etc., etc., etc. Get a better explanation, first of all. And there are ridiculous people on both sides of the spectrum. To be a
Oh,
thinking person and trying to make sense of the world, that really makes you an unstable person for the society for most part, because the very fact that society functions is that it has a set of assumptions on which the boat is floating. Now you start tinkering with those assumptions. I mean, there is a chance that you'll make the world a better place, but there's also a chance that the civilization or the society will get the best of you and just maul you out of existence.
100%, man.
Right.
It's it just, I don't know, bro. It's just like it's even I even find it hard to have a discussion with people that just like think that, like I've had discussions with people before, like, one of the things that I try and tackle with it, at least from a sort of aspect of conversation to make like people who believe themselves to be atheists, is like when you go back far enough, whether this is this concept of, you know, Eve made from Adam's ribs or whatever, but if you go even beyond that, like let's go into like this sort of like aspect of science where, you go back to this concept of the Big Bang. Like, what was before the Big Bang? What do you think? Just like a bunch of gas, like over the vast spans of darkness in this like universe, just like all of a sudden like coalesced and got together and like, you know what, boys? Let's get together and create something amazing. Even though we're just random gases that just randomly appeared one day, we just got together and we just like, let's party, boys, and we make like a big bang, and bang, like the universe is created. Bro, you can't tell me that some random gases just came out of nowhere,
And they loved
floated
it.
together
They
over
loved.
billions. Huh?
They made love to each other. Methane
They
fucking
must have.
propane. The
Yeah,
methane
that's it,
fucking.
bro. That's it. Just over billions and billions, hundreds of billions, trillions of kilometers, infinite space, infinite darkness. They just found each other. Well, if that's the case, is that
And
not itself like some form of like spiritual inclination? You're telling me random gases over the vast spans of darkness, over trillions and trillions in infinite cosmic universe, got together, found themselves together. We're talking multiple gases, multiple gases got together and decided, you know what? In the best interest of us, we're going to propagate a universe. How is that in and of itself not something that is of a divine nature? So for people to go like, oh, divinity doesn't exist, oh, God doesn't exist, oh, this doesn't exist, that doesn't exist, bro, please. Like, please, you are literally either a robot, a cardboard cutout, or you seriously have not ever experienced some form of spiritual inclination for whatever reason. And I pray that, if someone happens to listen to this that is an atheist, and I don't think it will be for, at least in the immediate future. I do hope in the far future someone listens to this that is an atheist and like has these questions of like, why does this happen? Why does that happen? Like, there is something beautiful in the universe, bro, or ma'am, whoever you are, and you really should like pay keen attention to it,
or the they
because
them
these
people.
things yell out. Or
Or the
they
they.
them people, whoever, man, whatever you got between your legs, whatever you put in your ears, your nose, on your tongue, whatever you write on your body, on your forehead. Some people love those facial tattoos, man. Whatever it is, there is something deeper in this universe. There is a sixth sense, and you might not see it now, but like, good heavens, it will come to you. But it might not come to you to the end of your life. but there is a reason why the world has formed in the way that it has. There is a reason the West has formed in the way that it did. There is a reason that the subcontinent of India or Bharat formed in the way that it did, or any other nation for that matter. And that was all bore of spiritual inclination. The ritual is separate. The spiritual inclination, the deeper layer of the fabric of the universe, however that exists, I've got
Mm.
no I've got no scientific evidence to back that up. But you and me have talked, brother, and I believe in it. You believe in it. We know plenty of other people that believe that this universe holds something deeper, something ethereal, something cosmic beyond what our five senses are capable of seeing. And for
Yeah.
someone to just completely dismiss it and chalk it up to just random and chaotic, the highest order of ignorance, the highest order of arrogance. I'm sorry, but that's how I personally see it.
See, the feeling that I have is after speaking to a lot of people and reading the experiences of people who, what we call siddhas, who are able to.
Yep.
So I think people understand what a siddha is. So I don't need to explain it. Tell me that uh, we know about the string theory, right?
Yep.
You and me, even if you're not like, even if you're not mathematical geniuses, uh, it took us a while to understand what string theory really is. And string theory perhaps is a, a scratch on the surface of the um, beyond physical reality.
Yep.
And 99% of the 99.99% of people on this earth will not be able to understand it, even if you give it to them in sort of a, in the form of a diagram and
Mm.
cartoons and animation. Now think about the fact that somebody who has experienced the world as a whole, they just can't talk about their experience to anyone because it's so hard to
Yep.
explain. Your
I
deepest thought,
guess.
right? Your
Sorry, you go, bro.
deepest thought, yeah, your deepest thoughts and uh, something that um, so so a version of reality that you have experienced. It's the hardest to explain it to people because they won't get it, and that happens with a lot of people, and that's why people who become spiritually evolved, they also become reclusive. Or they have a bit, and because what they see they can't tell. So for example, somebody who knows, who can see the future, right? They will know that when their children will die, when they will die, when their grandchildren will die, if there's going to be an accident in a family. How do you deal with that?
I don't know. I think to myself, if someone has that ability, that sort of innate gift that has the ability of foresight, I assume that this is a pure assumption. I assume that they are going to do everything they can to prolong the inevitable. But like that prolonging of the inevitable ultimately leads to the end of that road. It's like you can
Yeah, and
try.
and then how much can you really play with destiny?
Yeah, fuck. It's mate. That's one
And sh-
question
and
that I've
should
seen.
you? And should you?
That's bro. Oh man, having this conversation at almost 3 in the morning is wild. That thing of like, should you play with destiny? How much can you play with destiny? It's like when we talk about string theory, it's like it all sort of like interfolds on it itself because you can't avoid it, but you
I
need to participate in it at the same time. Like I that sort of like knack where people don't believe in destiny or don't believe in like sort of someone's whether people want to have this idea of greater concepts of like birth charts and astrology and this and that, is irrespective. If you don't believe in destiny, bro, like if you want to truly like try and play this game where you run away from like destiny, you running away from it is running towards it. And that in itself is like and I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just you, maybe it's just some things that we've seen and lived and whatnot. But like you can't run away from your own destiny, no matter how hard you try, because the further you run away from it, the faster you run towards it. And that in and of itself is a concept that I think would strain a lot of minds. But that's like one of the things that's like sort of interlaid in my mind, and some of the things I've looked at that is a part of like a greater concept of string theory, because
Mm,
you're part of a web, bro. You're part of a fabric that you don't even realize yet, but you are on it and you walk that path, bro. You pull yourself along that thread, try as you might to pull yourself away from it, because there is other threads that intersect on that, mate. You cannot run from it. There is always people that come into your life, whether it's for 5 minutes, 5 years, 50 years, it doesn't matter. There are other factors that play that keep you on that thread, that keep you moving forward, which in and of itself is some form of destiny. And for people to dismiss that, I'll say it, I said it before and I'll say it again. Ignorance of the highest order. Absolute ignorance of the highest order.
and playing with destiny has consequences,
Absolutely.
right? Nature destined somebody, say, an injury or reward for someone. You came in the way. I mean, Yogi says that you will get part of the karma
Mm,
for your interference because that was supposed to happen.
yeah.
So you need a the more evolved you become, the more conscious you become, you need a firmer psyche. You need a very strong being. You need a very strong heart um, to deal with all this. Because nature is ruthless. We know that for a fact. You just observe things around you. Nature is
Yeah.
ruthless at the end of the day.
Oh, it is. It's gosh. Unless we're talking about geoengineered, unless we're talking about geoengineered nature, then that's separate. Not to like go off on a, not to like completely detract away from the conversation, but yeah, it's I maybe it's just me, bro, but I don't know. I just get so infuriated every time I hear the term atheist. Now, at least at this stage of my life. From 2017 onwards, I became spiritually inclined. Like I never felt the spiritual. I was never touched by the spiritual in any way, shape, or form. Like even though I was baptized Roman Catholic and I went to church, this and that, I prayed, but like all the times I prayed, it all fell on deaf ears. Doesn't matter what I prayed. Pray for my mum's health, pray for my health, pray for prosperity, pray for this, pray for that. I never got answers. But like come 2017, obviously all that changed. I'm not going to go into the specifics. If anyone wants to go into the specifics, they can go and listen to the the previous podcast that I did with my friend here. But like the point being is that for someone to seriously consider that this universe or whatever infinite universes, doesn't matter what anyone concept has, sorry, doesn't matter what someone has as a concept, whether there's one singular universe, multi universes, whatever, this idea that someone can truly be to their very core, have this concept that there is nothing greater than themselves, is is the biggest baffling thing that I've ever experienced from 2017 onwards. Now, I could be biased. It could just be my personal experience. It could be another person's personal experience. Maybe those individuals, as I said earlier, maybe those individuals just have not been touched by something greater than themselves. And I mean that obviously in a spiritual and a metaphysical sense. I don't mean in a
No,
physical sense.
it need not be limited to a spiritual or a metaphysical experience. Till the time you're not humbled down by something, you don't start looking up for help,
That's a good. That's fair. That's a good point.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's just it just baffles me that there's that these that people exist in this world to this day that like just think everything is random and chaotic, man.
see
But maybe
this entire thing of becoming atheist, it is a, it's a, I think generally speaking, it's a Western concept, and it is there because Western religions, they sort of, for most part, for the past at least 2000 years, and then the second generation that started about 1400 years ago, specifically what we're talking about, the principles of those of the Western world have been running antithetical to the virtues of spirituality. And that is why people had, so for example, if you had a bad father, you will think that all men are abusive. If your first boyfriend or girlfriend cheats on you, you will think that there is cheating in all relationships, and you would want to get out of relationships. And I think that is something that has happened with a lot of Westerners, and it happens with people in India, in Bharat as well, but less often. Let me put it
mate,
that way.
well, I saw the other day that the divorce rate in Bharat is 1%. Like that's when I look at like Australia or the US and I see like basically upwards of 50% divorce rates, and then I look at India and I see 1% divorce rate, I go, bro, what have we done wrong? How far off the beaten path has the Western social fabric gone to such a degree that it has detracted itself from spiritual inclination, that has detracted itself from morals and ethics? It has literally warped into this like corpus of like unethical, but like like this unethical corpus of like sin where we're like we love lust, we love greed, we love this, we love that, we fuel it, we feed it. It's like this manifestation of like everything that is abhorrent. Now don't get me wrong,
No, no,
some of
no.
these concepts need to exist.
Yeah, obviously, but you think that those are causes or effects?
I think it's a give and take. I think there's a bit of both. Like I think you have to propagate one for that for that sort of concept to manifest itself in the real world. Like obviously one of the biggest things, and this is obviously a problem of mine, and I'm happy to say this, like I whether I want to call myself a sex addict or not is entirely separate discussion. I don't consider myself to be a sex addict, but I think about women up until recently, I think about women all the damn time. It's like I won't even be thinking or seeing women, and they'll just pop into my head. But that idea of them popping into my head has become this manifestation of my addiction in the past for like watching pornography, which became like readily available in the West. Yeah, I can just go online. I can go to pornhub.com. Bang, there it is. Sexual acts, infinite sexual acts. The world's my oyster. Doesn't matter what color it is. It could be red, white, green, blue, yellow, purple. It doesn't
Sorry.
matter, bro. There's a bean for everyone. There's a flavored bean for everyone on Pornhub. But that there, because it propagates itself, and I'm not directly attacking pornography. Yeah, like pornography in itself, I think it cannot go away. I don't think it'll ever be banned. I think, but what it will hold its place in society, at least from some form of at least like sexual proclivity. It's always going to be there. Like that train left the station back in that train left the station back in like the 1950s, 1960s. Once that train left that station, bro, like that train ain't turning around. But the fact that it's there and it's readily available, and I'll bring this back around, and especially now that it's so easily accessible, has like warped a lot of the perception of men in how they should behave in specific aspects of a relationship. And I know it affected me. For sure it affected me. But while it was affecting me at like sort of the heightened negative stages of my life, I also wasn't spiritually inclined. I was locked away in video games, bro. I was full on material. Like another thing, like just greed and like envy because, I was like, oh, I was playing these video games and I was like upper echelon of like the gaming community and this and that. And I was living this falsified world. But like what was coming with it was like all these concepts of like sin, but they exist in the real world, they exist in the metaphysical, they have to exist. I feel they have to exist in order for like individuals to become the best versions of themselves. But some people just, oh my god, some people, man, they just get lost in the thick of it, and before you know it, the bell's rung, the toll's
Mm.
been paid, they're at the end of their life, and what have they achieved other than just being sexual pigs, greedy assholes, lustful sinners, and envious assholes? Like, it's. Fuck the 21st century, man. What a fucking time to live in.
Okay, give me a moment. I need to get some
Yeah,
water.
yeah. Yeah, no sweat. Give me a moment to gather my own thoughts. Whether this will get cut out or whether this will get cut out or, you know,
Hello?
hello.
You're saying something, or are you laughing by yourself?
I just said to myself I was going to have a thought, but I wasn't sure how long you were going to take, but you're only like 5 seconds. So.
Yeah, that's bottle was right here.
Oh, right there, mate.
So you need like
Yeah.
you need a safe space.
Oh, I think everyone needs a safe space. But like, how safe do we make it? Like,
Yeah,
do we make the safe
Tushar.
space to such a degree that like those people that put themselves into it are completely locked off from the rest of the world? I don't know what you're doing right now. Oh, you're drinking.
Yeah. Sorry, this
Right.
magic.
That's it. Oh,
Yeah.
magic.
So
I don't care what anyone says.
magic,
Magic's real, mate.
magic. So this. Uh, so I've had my own addictions, right? We've discussed that previously, and fortunately, been able to overcome them. And the concept, the understanding that so sex is a very sort of interesting part of our lives, right? And we'll talk about it a bit later, but let me try to explain what I have understood. The more individualistic that you get, and by that I'm not discounting the fact that you don't that individualism itself is a problem, but the more you start identifying with your own ego, your own personality, and that's part of the reason why this conversation that we are having, I would try to avoid putting the personality up front, because putting the personality up front has consequences. There are a lot of authors who used to write anonymously, and there's a reason for that. Um, the more you start identifying with your ego, with your own personality, um, the smaller it becomes, and then you want to expand. You want to have a nice car. You want to, wear a lot of gold, perhaps. have a lot of sex, need a lot of power, so on and so forth. So that the existence that you are in right now, that feels beautiful. But then that's a losing game because you get into comparisons and somebody would be better off than you and you will not be at peace and you find a peaceful person and you get pissed off and then you try to fuck with their life and you become a psychopath and so on and so forth, right? So this is an endless trail that you get into. Sex is sex is is spiritually speaking, my understanding is, and this is part scripture and part like practical understanding, that sex is what makes us transcend for a little while our own personality and connect with reality at a super physical level,
For sure.
right? And then when our ego is trying to do that, but it doesn't know what to do because it doesn't hasn't developed any spiritual understanding, um, all that you all that you crave is sex. So it's the high that you should ideally get by the application of meditation, sadhana, etc., etc. Once you get into the drugs game, you want to get to that high through drugs. You want to get to that feeling of bliss through drugs or through sex. You keep trying to find Shakti, and where does Shakti exist? Shakti or power exists. You get a glimpse of Shakti during sex.
Yeah.
And that's why people become the more gross oriented, the more physical matter oriented people become, the more strongly they start identifying with their physical body, the more lustful they also become. And this happens with a lot of this happens with a lot of yogis as well. I've come to understand that because what happens is that people try all jazzy things and they don't sort of cleanse their body. There are blockages and all. Their kundalini or their consciousness becomes high, and then they start. They get a whiff of it, and then they look. What you call, for the lack of better word, the lower chakra gets activated. But instead of going up, it starts going down. And if it goes down, then you're going to crave sex all the time. Right. This is, I have understood, I have explained this to you in a very abstract manner. This is obviously not a complete and very clear um, sort of explanation. But this is what I feel that happens with people. So, because sex is a form of union, right? It is the best way you can expand your immediate personality and feel the consciousness, of somebody else, right? But but if you but it's not enough. It's going to give you a glimpse of the ultimate. That pleasure is momentary, and momentary pleasures, the kind of addictions that they can give you, nothing else can.
Yeah, it's just like
Sorry if I confused you.
no, no, you haven't. I'm just trying to sort of think about how to sort of word this correctly because like I agree. It's like it's almost like at least from like at least from a Western lens, it seems like it's like chasing that next high. Like sort of about like reaching Shakti. Well, like how I would sort of like elaborate that to like a Westerner would be like, like when you partake in sex or like sexual acts or you partake in like drugs, like you're trying to put your like mental state into like another place where you just feel good
Mm,
irrespective of like the damage you might be doing around you, whether that is like look, especially in these instances with like drugs and sex probably not so much drugs. Look, maybe not all substances, but certainly some of the more harder like pharmaceutical substances like methamphetamines and stuff, like there is definitely like a physical acclimation that comes with it. Like that could be, I've seen it with my brother, yeah, like my brother, like I love him, but like he has like a terrible addiction problem. Not so much with sex as opposed to like addiction with substances. Like sex has come sort of part and parcel with that, but his sort of inclinations is more in the substances, and one of the things that comes with it is like this sort of like manifestation of aggression that then
Mm,
like fuels like further wanting of substances just to like calm the mind down. So like he takes substance, reaches peaks, gets like peaked out high, and then like as he comes down off of that high and he's moved away from that, like maybe what he perceives in his own mind as some sort of like, you know extra dimensional sort of region of the mind where consciousness has sort of like eloped and it's gone into a place that is sort of like separated from the physical. And then as those two separations begin to sort of like swing back together and come back into unison where you're coming back to reality, it almost like manifests and warps into like this aggression. And in order to run away from that aggression and you know, move back towards that next high, he then has to like fuel it again and fuel it again because you don't want to like have to deal with the consequences of your actions. And that, look, sex is different. Like as you said, sex is a union. Some people become like genuine sex addicts, where some
mm.
people just have like this inclination for whatever reason into like lust, and that in and of itself obviously is a problem,
And
especially when people become.
sex is not a bad thing, not to
No,
forget.
sex isn't a bad thing, but
Mm,
some people make it a bad thing where they become almost like almost like their lust becomes unquenchable to such a degree that they'll pay for escorts. Like they'll go to brothels all the time. They'll like live paycheck to paycheck where they're just like, you know, drink alcohol, gamble, sex, drink alcohol, gamble, strip club, drink alcohol, gamble, sex. Like it
mm,
becomes these repetitive cycles where the person just ends up in this like in their own little cart on a train that's like leading to nowhere but despair. And it's like you're not becoming a best version of yourself. Like sex is there, lust is there, like these idea of the seven deadly sins, greed is there, envy's there, all these things, gluttony's there. I love eating as much as the next bloke, bro, but I know if I overdo it, it's not going to have a good effect on my mind. But some
mm.
people like just take these things to such another level that they like almost lose an element of their sense of reality, a sense of the things around them that truly matter, which is their loved ones, which is their family, which is their friends, people that like actually look out for them and support them.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's hard, man.
See,
It's really
see,
hard.
another interesting thing that I've understood about sex is that it is one of the most powerful process that exists in nature.
Hmm.
See, think about how much energy and I mean this you can't explain like truly logically, in the most scientific way, but I'll just tell it to you the way I see it, which is think about the type of mechanism and the type of paraphernalia and machinery and so on and so forth that one requires to make a robot or make a car. How much energy and infrastructure goes into that?
Heaps.
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 A process that two people can do, which can create new life. What
Mm.
what do you think? How powerful that process would be?
Well, I know at least from the idea of conception that out of the millions and millions and millions of sperm that is released during sex or released during ejaculation, The sperm actually don't choose the egg. The egg chooses the sperm. Out of the millions of sperm that
No,
flood the ovaries.
that's all right. But think about the process, the amount of energy.
Oh, well, I don't know if I could chalk it up to like kilowatts per hour, but I
Mm,
can imagine in my head that there is a significant amount of energy that is not just being released during those moments, but even when the conception happens, when the egg has selected the sperm and they connect, I'm sure there is a huge amount of energy, of biological energy that is released. Like
yeah.
I know you and me have talked about like, I know like not to go off on a tangent, but I know you and me have talked, in some form to an extent, quite extensively in fact, about this idea of like, when you die and, if you do believe in reincarnation, like, you sort of like choose the next life and this and
Mm,
that. But the physical biological factor that takes place must have such an enormous amount of energy that is released that it essentially is creating an entire new thread that like
mm,
layers itself into the fabric of the universe. Like people talk about
mm,
string theory, like there's theorists on string theory. You yourself are a singular thread amongst a trillions and trillions of threads that have existed in the past and will continue to exist in the future. For
mm,
life to be for life to be created and for an entirely new thread to come into being and to be interlaid amongst like the cosmic threads of the universe, that would require
You can, and you can get addicted to that process. Why wouldn't you? That was what I was trying to arrive at. Why wouldn't
yeah,
you? And
yeah.
it would require a very heavy, a very powerful psychological exercise to to rebuild your brain so that that energy can be regulated. Because if it's not, then every curve that you see even on the roadside will appear like a something that you can put your penis into. That can happen. That happens with people, right? People get into all kind of funny things, right?
Oh yeah.
Sex dolls, trying to
Oh
fuck a
mate.
goat or cow or
Yeah, some people take that every hole's a goal to a whole other level. Mate, when I see people like when I not individual people, me personally, I don't know an individual. I don't know one single person that actually owns one of these, but like people buy like blokes, they buy like fleshlights and things, like just like inanimate objects just to fuck. I'm just like, bro, what is the fuck is wrong with you? Like at least look, I'm not for look, personally. I'm not all for like the idea of like propagating prostitution. I think like that placates some really negative effects on society, negative effect on the individual, on their families, etc., etc. But like if you are going to be this like ravenous beast that just feeds into lust, don't do it with an inanimate object from a fucking sex store. Like that's just silly to me. But anyway, that's my rant on that.
that's all right.
Oh man,
Yeah,
some
but
people.
uh, see, the more keenly you look at the world, the more for the funnier it gets, and it better get funny, because if it's not funny, you're not able to see the funny side of the world, and life is going to become really miserable.
Oh yeah, that's
Mm,
absolutely true.
yeah,
100%.
and that this to look at the funny side of things. It's one of the survival skills that you need to. If you're becoming a conscious person, then humor, good company, warm feeling, family, and not just like biological family, or like not nothing to that extent, but having just good friends and people who um, will take care of you, who you can take care of. Because taking care of people also, it's a very relieving experience. In at least, at least personally, uh, you would like helping people, not for their own sake, but for your own sake.
Yeah.
Not for their sake, but for your own sake, right? So all those things are very important in life, to have that ecosystem of human beings and animals and nature, and just so that things are in sync. And uh, many of us are blessed enough to be born in such settings, and many of us graduate into that setting. But the most
Mm,
important is to develop your own personality that you yourself can enjoy, right? If alone you are in bad company, then it's a problem, because yeah, you need to be a nice person.
mm.
And
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think before when you talk about how people expect like I don't know, like it's almost like it's almost like people expect to get like immediate rewards for their actions. And when they don't get like immediate rewards for their actions, like they just like lose interest in like trying to lean into those like positive inclinations of like human spirituality or human consciousness or like to trying to like better themselves or trying to like help their family, their friends, their loved ones, like people that like genuinely show care towards those individuals. And it's like they toss it all away or they chalk it up to like if I don't get an immediate result to my action, I don't want to participate in it. Like it's something I've seen in the Western world like today is it's just I don't know, they're just like if I don't get some sort of like monetary handout for something I do, like then why the fuck did I do it in the first place? Well, if that's the way you think, mate, I don't know. Maybe you're an atheist. Just a thought. I don't know. It's just
you just hate atheists.
yeah. I'll just chalk it up to atheists.
Yeah,
It's
I see.
like
That's really like a you don't train your brain like a dog. That you do
mm.
this, you fetch me the newspaper and you get a treat.
That's how so many people behave now.
Right? You don't train your brain like you train a dog. You don't
Yeah.
train your brain like you don't train your children like you train your dog. You don't train
Oh,
bloody anyone like a dog, because a dog is a dog. It's nice, it's faithful, it's the most loving creature, but it's a dog.
it's stupid.
It's, I mean, its destiny is, of a limited intellect. I love dogs, but
Oh,
it's
same.
just, it's, if they can become like meditative and become super conscious, I'll be the happiest person. But
Yeah.
if they become rishis, I will, and they can give me jnan, they can give me wisdom. I'll bow to them. I'll go touch their 4 feet
That's it.
and, and pray to them. But at least in the present world, we have, I mean, they unfortunately they are in a species where they can't be the most evolved.
No.
They're fabulous creatures. But you don't train your brain like you train a dog. Fetch me the newspaper or the ball and give a treat.
Some people treat dogs and cats, mind you, like they're humans. Like not well, look, some people actually dress their animals up in like, hand stitched clothes.
Oh yeah, there's a
Oh,
guy where
oh
my father
God.
lives, where my parents live. There's a guy who's got like shoes for his dog.
Oh no. Oh no. What do you think's on the bottom of his feet, bro? What's on the bottom of his feet? He's got dog pads. They're built into him. Like, people put
What
like their
what what
dogs in like
what what
jackets and stuff.
what I want to see is somebody buying a condom for their dog. So they can fuck and not
Literally.
breed. Right? You
Oh
get a condom.
man.
I just want to know how they'll make them wear the condom. That's the interesting part.
Oh god. And some people, I genuinely believe, bro, some people use like dogs and cats as like almost like this mechanism to like teach them how to like look after something else other than themselves. And then they're going to like have kids or something. I'm like, bro, dogs and cats are not the same as human beings. Whilst they might have their own individual personalities, whilst they might be loving and affectionate, like they're like, and as I agree. I also love dogs. I obviously sort of lean more into dogs than I lean into cats, but they're both loving in their own regard. Cats obviously more solitary animals, where dogs are obviously more like sort of social animals, or at least like when it comes to like social hierarchy. But like some people, bro, will literally treat their animals like they're humans. Even obviously to the degree as we just laughed about, where they dress them up in clothes and put socks on them, and like dress them up in the most fanciful little outfits with the brightest and beautiful colored jackets. And I'm just like, mate, this isn't your child. This is an animal that is a pet that is there to be, it is there
He's a
to show
fucking
you
son of a
affection.
bitch.
It's the fucking son of a bitch. They shit in the house. They eat fucking everything. As long as you keep feeding them, they will keep eating. But they're the best. They're cute. I love animals. I love dogs. Great and small. Look, not chihuahuas, admittedly. I'm happy to say this. I think chihuahuas are like devils. I think they're demons. I think they're jinns. I think they're like absolute like what do some people it's like shaitan. I think chihuahuas are like the shaitans of the entire like
Shaitan.
I think
That's Shaitan.
I think they're the of all the breeds of dog, Chihuahuas are the shaitan in my personal opinion. Like they're loud, they meow, 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 meow. They'll crack it at everything. They've got little man syndrome. They bite at your ankles. They've got this wild, crazy, demonic personality. But like they bring comfort, bro. They also
Yeah.
bring comfort to people, and that's the
Yep.
beautiful thing about animals. They bring comfort when you are unable to get comfort from other human beings. But some people really lean into that, and that becomes their everything. Then you end up like that lady from The Simpsons that has got like 30 cats in her house. So what do you do? I don't know. I think people just need to really like look inwards, man, instead of looking outwards and trying to find some people will like just want to look outwards to try and like find and fumble through everything instead of like looking inwards at like what they're trying to resolve. And I don't know, maybe it's just the 21st century, bro. Maybe it's the Kali Yuga. Maybe it's the end times. I don't know. Maybe the internet's brought about this like last stage of, you know, a functional society across the entire planet, but some people, mate, some people are just lost fucking puppies. And they want to raise puppies themselves when they can't even look after themselves. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but
See, I mean,
I don't know.
I had a let's not get into that. This is a very problematic area. Once you start talking about dogs, man, the dog owner, the dog parents are going to find us, and then they're going to do a psychoanalysis of our personality. Uh,
They're gonna assume we have Rottweilers for pets. That's what they're gonna automatically assume. Oh, well, you must have some big violent dog as a pet. No, no,
no,
no.
yeah, no, they'll just drown you with the accusation of being insensitive.
Oh yeah, there's that as well.
Despite all the
Oh,
caveats and all the riders that we have given, nothing will matter.
no, that's it.
Yeah. You,
Nothing.
once you're a kafir and good to be dead. Yeah.
Once a kafir, always a kafir.
Uh,
That's right. I don't mind being a kafir.
yeah. But there's a good conversation. Um,
They're always good
uh,
conversations, brother.
yeah, I think it's a good point to close it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Well, it is 3:30 in the morning here in the land down under.
yeah,
I don't even know what they call it, the land down under. It's not even down under. But all right, my friend, it's been a beautiful conversation. It's been funny, lots of
yeah.
laughs.
Many
deep
more to
thought.
go. Many more to go. And I'm seeing you soon.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. Oh mate, what's the date? It's the 20th of September now.
Yeah.
We're
So I'll
15,
just
we're
let
50.
me just switch off the recording first.
Yeah, yeah, all good.